Hi folks, Jenny here, also known as New Uke, New York on some parts of the internet. I'm here with a one-take tutorial for you. This is my series of public ukulele tutorials on songs or techniques in which I sit down and stream the thing live. Don't do a lot of editing. You'll hear me stumble and make mistakes, but that's okay. It's all part of the process. I want to share something with you that I don't think has been shared on the internet already 14,000 times. There are a lot of ukulele videos already out there, and I'm just trying to add to the fun and give us more things to work on, more things to play together. I do also hold 4 free public ukulele play-alongs online every month, 2 on Zoom, 2 on YouTube, unless you're one of my Patreon patrons, in which case you can do all 4 of them on Zoom. And a big thank you to my Patreon patrons who make videos like this possible for me. Ukulele is not a full-time gig for me. I wish it were. I wish it paid the rent. But until the time that it does, I'm really thankful for those patrons who do come by and help me out for 1 month or more. It's great to have that support and to get to do as much ukulele content as I do, and my patrons are a huge part of that. If you do decide to join us for a month or more, no hard sell from me, but I do always make sure that there's lots of special perks and exclusive material for the patrons. But even if you can't, even if you're only here for the stuff that's publicly available on YouTube or the public posts on Patreon, that's all great too, and I thank you for the support and for stopping by my video. For this particular lesson, I want to do a song that works for our current, I don't know when you're watching this, but as I am filming this, we have a holiday coming up, and it is St. Patrick's Day, which is tomorrow as I'm filming this. I recently made a cover of this song that I'm teaching today, Whiskey in the Jar, which is a traditional Irish folk song that dates back to maybe even the 18th or 17th century. I made a cover of this recently for 100 Days of Ukulele. Ask me about that if you want to know more. And I was asked if I would do a tutorial on it. So that is what I'm doing. It's nice to do this tutorial as well because it is a fairly beginner-friendly tutorial. Not all of my tutorials are, although I always like to try to talk about how beginners can approach a song that they really want to play, even if it's a little bit more intermediate a song. But this one's pretty simple chords. We're going to go through it, and I'm going to try something a little different today where I'm going to play the song first. Sometimes we start from the chords, but let me play through the song for you, and then we will talk sort of about how you can play it, whether you want to make the same decisions as me or not, because not everybody has to play this song the same way that I play it. That is just fine. But I do want to share how I played it and maybe also some of the other things that you could do to change it up. So I'm going to play this first with the chords on the screen. If you want to play along, you're welcome to. I'll put a timestamp here so you can come back to it. At the end of this tutorial, I will play the song without the chords on the screen in case you want to see my fingers a little closer. But if you want to grab chords for this on your own end, you can always get them from the link here in YouTube. The description box has a link, and also the Patreon post, which will be public, so you don't have to be one of my patrons to get it, will also include a PDF that you can download, the same PDF of the song. And right now it's in our mixed level play along songbook as well, so you can get it through that songbook if you have picked up the most recent version of it. Who knows if it'll be in there forever, so if you're watching this a long time in the future, it may or may not be in the songbook anymore, but we'll see. So let me play through this kind of as I did it for the cover, as best as I can remember. I never played the same song exactly the same way twice. Kind of a speedy Island Strum, if you know the Island Strum. If you don't worry, we'll talk about some other ways you can play it. Let me just play through this for you first, and then we'll talk about how I approach the song and how you can. 1, 2, 3. As I was going over the far-famed Kerry Mountains, I met with Captain Farrell and his money he was counting. I first produced my pistol and then produced my rapier, saying, "Stand and deliver, for you are a bold deceiver." Back for the daddy-o, back for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. I counted out his money and it made a pretty penny. I put it in my pocket and I took it home to Jenny. She sighed and she swore that she never would deceive me, but the devil take the woman, for she never could be easy. Back for the daddy-o, back for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. I went up to right. So let's talk about how you can play that if you want to play that, if that was clear as mud to you. First of all, you've got your 4 or 5 chords over to the side. These are all beginner enough friendly chords that if you don't know any of them, you should probably learn them. You'll have a much wider option of what you can play with all of these chords, with the possible exception of that sus chord. Now, I love a sus chord, which means suspended. I did a whole video on suspended chords recently for my patrons. However, you can usually get away with doing not the suspended chord if, for example, playing that G is hard enough for you without adding your pinky finger there. But that is how I would recommend you play the suspended chord if you want to. In most songs, if you add a suspended chord, you're going to come back to the root, the regular non-suspended chord. So in most songs, although we don't in this one, but I'm getting ahead of myself, you would go G, I would add my pinky for the G suspended 4 so that I could just lift that pinky to go back to the G. This song, we actually don't go back to the G, but if you want to play that suspended chord, you can still play it the same way. Because we don't go back to the G, you could also go from the G and flip your fingers and play the G suspended 4 this way, with your index remaining where it is, but your middle and your ring changing with their spots so that they play the 3rd fret of the E and A strings. So you can play either of those shapes that works for you if you want to play suspended. You can also just play the G. So you can just play the G all the way through where it says suspended 4 and just keep that the way that it is, and that would be fine. Also, you might have noticed that that E minor had a 4th finger option on the G string. Now, sometimes I like to add that. I often don't think it's necessary. You can certainly put a pinky down to continue that E minor chord into its 4-finger shape. You can also, in this song, because we're going from the G to the E minor sometimes, you can keep your G shape and reach a pinky around, another pinky exercise, and put it on the 4th fret of your C string, and that is also an E minor. So another E minor option for you. For some people, that, what Cynthia Lynn calls the pinky trick, is going to be a really nice way to go from G to E minor. I kept blanking out in the middle of that playthrough we just did, and so I was sometimes not thinking when I was going to E minor, and I was playing a suspended instead of an E minor. But basically it's all pinky motion there, and the stronger you can get your pinky, the more easily those kinds of switches are going to be. So those are our chords that we have. Now, as long as I have the chords not on the screen, let's just talk about how the chords move in this song so you can see my fingers nice up and close. And if you're curious about my instrument and its tuning, I am playing a G-C-E-A baritone. So typically baritones are tuned D, G, B, E. This is a very low tuning though. Listen to this. If you have a high G tuning on your ukulele, this G will be 2 octaves below yours. If you have a low G tuning, this is still 1 octave below low G. So all 4 of these strings are an octave below your low G tuning of an instrument. These are called Perry's Octave Uke strings if you want to look them up and get yourself a set. I'm not paid by them or sponsored by them. I just think they sound cool on my baritone. So if you're wondering why it sounds so low, that's why. Octave lower, Perry's Octave Uke strings. So in this song, we have very similar chord progressions and chord movements, but they're not exactly the same. There's one for the verse and one for the chorus. In the verse, you start on a G. You can use your pinky trick to add the E minor or get to the E minor another way. Then you're going to go to the C, which I would probably play with my ring finger. Keep these fingers nearby because you're going to go back to G at this point. So I'm going to go back into my G shape. So any of these chord switches, if they're difficult for you where you are in your playing ability, feel free to break it down and just practice that particular chord switch between those 2 or 3 chords just by itself, because to get that up to speed, whatever speed you want the song to go, it'll make it a lot easier. And you can always work with a metronome. You can slow my play along down. You can just play a portion of it, whatever's helpful to you. So we're going to go, as I said, from that E minor to the C to the G. And then from there, we're going to go to a D chord. So here's one that might be trickier for some people. I like to lead whenever I can with my index finger. So because I stack my D shape like this with my index middle ring most of the time, it depends on what I'm playing next, I'm going to put my index down, then put my next two fingers next to it. You know, you can play the D chord other ways too, with two fingers, with one finger, but this I find very beginner friendly usually, and that is the D I most often use when I'm going from G to D to back again, which is what I'm doing in this song. G to D to back, you could practice that if that is tricky for you. Then it's the same thing again, back to E minor, back to C, back to G, and then at the very end of the verse, optional to add that pinky for the G suspended. And then going into the chorus, there's no E minor in the chorus. So if you don't like that E minor, you're in luck, it's only in the verses. The G suspended, or G if you're not playing the suspended chord, goes into a D for the chorus, then to a G, which we've done that switch before, just in a different place in the verse, then to a C, which we've done. We haven't gone from G to C in the verse, but it's a fairly easy switch because you already have a ring finger here. So you're just going to move that ring finger to your A string, third fret. Sometimes when I'm looking in the mirror of the screen while I'm talking, my math gets a little bit wonky. And then to the G, which we have done. Gone from C to G in the verse and the chorus, and then back to the D. And back to the G. And this time we do not go to a suspended, even if you are playing the suspended, unless you want to do your own thing and add a suspended here, which of course you could, but at that point I would recommend you just do it for a beat or two and then resolve back to the G again, because it's going to be nice to end the chorus on that root note of the G, which is also the key that we are in. So in this song, there's a very traditional folk song verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus structure. I do play that last chorus twice, and you can do that one of two ways. In my final chorus, when I played my cover of this song, I only did the last three lines of the final chorus. You know, I did at the end of the final verse, I did the chorus one time through just as written, and then I skipped the first line of the chorus and did it one more time, starting on the whack full, the daddy-o. This time when I was playing through, I did the chorus fully twice, because either one of those is perfectly acceptable. I just, wanted to show you a different option. So, and I went high with my vocal notes on the final line of that final chorus, but that's not something you need to do either. You can sing it the same way both times. Those kinds of changes, of course, you always have room to make different vocal decisions. So let's say you want to play this like I played it in the chorus. What I played in terms of strumming was a fast island strum. And most of my chords that are written on the page get 2 island strums with the speed that I'm going. If you really needed to slow it down, you can get away with 1 on the chords that I use 2 for by doing it at a half speed. I was going, no. I was going over, no, that's still 2. I'm just singing slower now. As I was going, it's hard to coordinate strumming slower but singing as fast. I was going over the far famed Kerry Mountains. I met with Captain Farrell and his money he was counting. Yeah, so if you sing it fast but strum it slow, I find that more complicated. So I'm not going to go into that any deeper into detail than say it is an option for you. For me, it makes sense to get my island strum up to speed so that I can do it twice for most of those chord changes. Let me put this back on the screen and I'll show you a couple of exceptions. In the first verse, for example, when I'm going through it, you get 2 for the G, 2 for the E minor, 2 for the C, and then 1 for the G. And then you actually do get 2 for the D, but what I've done for myself, just as a memory device, is I've written it out as if it were 2, because I want to remember that I don't go straight from counting into I first produced my pistol, which you could do. But what I want it to sound like is this. I met with Captain Farrell and his money he was counting, and then another D. At first, you could shorten that and just do 1 round of the island strum on money and 1 round on counting and go straight into I first produced. That would sound like this. I met with Captain Farrell and his money he was counting. I first produced. I just like to have a little more room to breathe, and so in order to remind myself to play that counting D on 2 island strums, I threw an extra one at the end here. I know that can be confusing for people if you think I literally mean every time I write the chord you play the island strum twice, but we already know that's not the case because this G just gets 1. That's a faster change. So whether you're counting this in 4 beats, you're counting it in 8 beats, you're not counting it at all, that's a shorter section. The money he was counting, the money is really only going to get 1 island strum if you're playing it like me. And then I'm going to do it twice again on counting, but I just want to remember that I'm giving myself a little bit of breathing room. Similarly, at the end of the chorus, you have a different thing happening than your rhythm. When you start the chorus, mush-a-ring-um-da-rum-da, that's 2. Whack for the daddy-o, that's 2 islands. Whack for the daddy-o. And here comes a fast switch. There's whiskey in the jar. I really just use 1 beat for each of those, 1 strum. Sometimes I do it 2, like 1 and 2 and. You can also do it that way. And you'll hear me, I think I did that one in the playthrough just now. Whiskey in the jar, and then I go back into the island. And let's see, how many times was I doing it? Whiskey in the jar, I counted out. Yeah, so you could stretch that out even more to give yourself more breathing room, but when you're leading a jam like I am, I try to be a little bit consistent. So I threw another G out here on the end here to remind me that I'm going to play another island strum, even though most of these are 2 island strums. I just didn't want to immediately go into the next verse. Whiskey in the jar, I counted out his money. You could do that, but I wanted to give myself a little breathing room, and also if I'm leading a jam, to let people catch up if they are maybe not sure when the next verse starts. Because actually we're going to sing I even before the next verse starts, and that kind of helps cue people in if they are playing along with me. So that's the method behind my madness. I'm sorry it's not as formally structured as some of my chord sheets are, where I might mark all the half measures and things like that. This one I just didn't do that. But at least once you know how one verse goes, you know how the rest of it goes. And you know that you can make your own choice. If you're playing this on your own, you can stretch out or shorten a lot of those ends of lines that I just mentioned to make it go more immediately into the next section, or give yourself even more breathing room. That's totally up to you. So let's say you don't want to play the island strum. You want to play something very simple because you're just learning how these chords move. You're just learning this song. You don't really understand the rhythms of it. I would play single strums. That's a great way to start out almost any song you would be learning. I can't think of an exception, but there must be an exception. For this one, let's just play through the first verse and the first chorus on single strums. And then if you like the feel of that, then keep with that. And don't feel like you need to move on to another strumming pattern ever, but even if you want to, until you're ready, until you can get it, your changes a little faster. So let's say we're just doing a single strum on each of these chords that I've written in. It would sound like this, and we'll do it slower, not as fast as we just did the last one. 1, 2, 3, 4. As I was going over the far-famed Kerry Mountains, I met with Captain Farrell, and his money he was counting. I first produced my pistol, and then produced my rapier, saying, "Stand and deliver, for you are a bold deceiver." Mush-a-ring-um-da-rum-da, for a G, back for the daddy-o, back for the daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. All right, so again, that jar really does only get 4 counts, but I've written it out as 2 just to remind myself we got a tiny bit of breathing room before we start the next verse. Because if you heard there, the verse does go straight into the chorus. So, are a bold deceiver, musha, you do not break in between those 2 with another measure. And you could make that work for yourself, but I really like going straight into the chorus there. All right, so single strums for as long as you need, as much as you need. And if you're arranging this song for yourself, you could do something like single strums at the beginning, single strums at the end, single strums for a dramatic verse in the middle. You know, you can switch it around and do different things on different verses or choruses. Let's say you think single strum sounds too simple to you, but you're not ready to do island strum, or you know how to do island strum, but you hate island strum. You can do a variation on island strum, something like dropping that second down on the island strum and doing down, up, down. As I was going over, you could add a chuck to it. As I was going could just hit your beats. Some people call this rock strum, or you can add an up at the end, like down, 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 up. So either with that up or without. As I was going over the far famed Kerry Mountains. I'm doing it a little slow, but then you get the picture. You're hitting all 4 beats, or 2. As I was going over far famed Kerry Mountains. So there you have a sort of in between, not intermediate, but between single strums, and trying to hit it 4 or 8 times in each 4 count that you might have. You could also do a down, down, up, and do that twice instead of an island strum. So every time you have 4 beats, you could do 2, down, down, up, down, down, up. As I was going over the far famed Kerry Mountains. So in that case, if you were doing down, down, up, you'd actually be doing each of those twice per island strum. And since there's 2 island strums, for example, in was going over, you would have it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. As I was going over. So there, that kind of breaks it down in a different way. It gives you plenty to do with your hand, but isn't maybe as fast as the island strum, or as sometimes people get confused between the strums that miss strings when you're going like clockwork on a down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Island strum asks you to keep doing that clockwork hand motion, but miss the strings. Sorry, I missed missing it. 2, 3, 4. Miss, miss, miss. But it's all coming from this clockwork motion. And if you want a longer tutorial on any of the other things I'm mentioning, like island strum, like rock strum, like chucking, anything like that, let me know in the comments and I can do more tutorials via your request. But basically, if you are trying to get away from island strum, do a variation or one of these other options. If you are trying to learn island strum, start with it a little slower, the whole song slowed down, and only speed it up when you feel ready to. And again, a metronome can be really helpful, and there are you can get a free metronome just through Google by Googling metronome, but there are also apps that you can use on your phone or tablet or things like that too. So I think that goes over most of what I wanted to talk about in this song. I want to do one more playthrough with the chords not on the screen, so that if you want to see my hands as I'm playing this, you can see them a little bigger. And of course, you've got my original cover too that you can refer to. I'm trying to play this as much like the cover as I can, but again, most people do not play the song exactly the same way twice. We make different choices, and so I'm just kind of trying to give you all the options here. In fact, I'm not even sure if I did do that lengthening of the line. I think I did, but I could be wrong, on the second line of each verse that I was talking about, where I wrote in the second D for myself. It's possible that when I did my cover, I played it differently, so that happens. All right, so maybe I'll even do a little chucking on this one midway through the song just for fun. This is a lighthearted, upbeat, you could sing it in the pub with your friends kind of song. It does have, a guy who gets captured and might end up killed. It's a little hard to say at the end of the song whether his brother's really going to rescue him or whether he's just dreaming that he would. And he does get, deceived pretty poorly by no relation to me, his Jenny. However, it's still upbeat and fun and a little bit lighthearted. So I think that, while you could certainly do a slow, sad version of this song, I like the upbeat one. So here's my final run through of this song. We'll see if I get those E minors where they go. 1, 2, 3. As I was going over the far famed Kerry Mountains, I met with Captain Farrell and his money he was counting. I first produced my pistol and then produced my radio, saying, "Stand and deliver, for you are a bold deceiver." Was shivering under and I, but for the daddy-o. Oh my. And a great, very loud car radio going by just at this moment. Perfect accompaniment. All right. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you if you're watching this at any point near any St. Patrick's Day. It is tomorrow as I'm recording this. And thanks for the request. I believe it was Natalie who requested this one. Thanks for asking me to show how I played it for the cover I made the other day. Please leave any questions that I did not answer in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. If you're one of my patrons, we can do this one in a teaching jam as well, or talk about it in my office hours. And if you are going to be joining us for one of our public play-alongs on a Tuesday on Zoom, then we can also play it there as well, which we did this past Tuesday, and it was really fun. So thanks for being here. Thanks to my patrons. Thanks to my non-patrons. Thanks for watching these, and I look forward to making the next one for you and for seeing you just in general on the internet. Happy strumming, folks.